This is an incoming transmission from the Jersey Shore.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group. Today you'll hear some of the most important financial information and wealth-building techniques available anywhere.
Let's get this party started, huh?
Do you have a question for Scott and the team?
Am I on the air?
609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646.
We'll get that information to them by radio.
Now, Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
It is a tale as old as time. Guess what? Governments, they got debt. Leaders, different ideas how to address it. Nothing new, but you might be surprised to learn just how fast our nation's debt grew right from the start of the Revolutionary War. Not only do we have a history lesson today for you, but Scott's also going to cover what you should be ready for in the future in terms of government spending and how that can impact your retirement. Important stuff today. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean. I am Alex Dingman, and the other exciting thing, Scott, this is show 50, baby. Congratulations.
Wow, let's go. Whoop, whoop.
Heck yeah. We hope folks have enjoyed the previous 49 editions of Financial Insanity. You can listen to past shows, 609-488-4646.com, the website there for Scott. But if you ever have any questions, maybe show ideas, that number again, 609-488-4646. So we're going to be talking about debt, also later on impact of inflation, and the top signs you need a new advisor, all on the way. But first off, Scott, the item of the day, national debt and Congress's actions in addressing it. Been front and center in the media for months. It often is, Scott, it seems like. But nothing new here about our nation struggling to pay off the liabilities, right? This is something I'm sure you've have experienced for a while, right?
Never stops.
No, it just seems like this is what they do. Now, how do you talk to folks, Scott, if people maybe are concerned about what the government is not doing about the debt, the impact it has on taxpayers? Is this something you have conversation with folks about?
Yeah, it is. I look at the areas when the potential changes in the government spending and they're kicking the can, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, talking to both sides right now. And you look at the tax rates, how it affects Social Security, how it affects the health care, how it affects inflation. And just a couple areas that people know than in my age, those old timers like myself and older.
I know.
The young ones that don't understand. You imagine collecting seashells on the beach and the government suddenly decides to take a few more seashells from you as taxes. This means you'll have fewer seashells, of course, left to save for retirement, sandcastle. And therefore, the question is, how is your spending? This is tax rates on government spending. How are your savings? Are you putting more money away? Are you putting that into your plan? And Alex, on top of the tax rates changing, when the advisor looks at your tax returns on a yearly basis, is he or she manipulating or making sure that they are in concert with the current tax rates you're at now? Imagine here you're married and now all of a sudden you become single. Well, that means your tax rate, what? It just jumped into a different tax bracket. And the second area on top of that, Social Security taxes. And you think about Social Security, it is like a monthly ice cream cone you receive in retirement. And you think about this, if the government decides to reduce the size of the cone, you'll have less ice cream to enjoy. So again, Social Security, that's even though they give the increase because of rising inflation. Well, the question is, are they going to raise the Medicare, which leads us into the healthcare area, where if the government reduces spending on healthcare, this means your umbrella may get smaller and you have to pay more out of pocket on your medical expenses. So how are people looking at this holistically, followed by the rapid inflation? Now, inflation, of course, as I wrap up on this very important area of what you're talking about, this government spending is, if the government keeps spending a lot of money and causing prices to rise, it's like a piggy bank shrinking in size. So even if you save the same amount of money, it won't buy the same amount of goodies.
Right.
So really important that I call it the rule of 10, I guess made it up. encourage your kids, please, you older people, my guys, me, my age, 60 and over. Of course, I'm older than 60. Tell your kids to just drain it, draw it, mash it in their brain. Guys, put away 10% of your earnings on a monthly basis. You've heard me say this, Alex, many, many times. Really, really drive home the point to your kids. Please put away 10% of your earnings every single paycheck or every time you mow a lawn.
You'll be glad
or
you
whatever
did.
you do.
Yeah, and you won't miss that 10%, but you'll sure be glad you have it in the future.
But the impact on taxes, the impact of what's going on right now can be catastrophic. And we've seen other nations, if you go back in history, even you go back medieval times, I'm thinking about the ancient times, there were taxes, whether Mesopotamia or Egypt or Rome, the taxes were levied to support the ruling elite.
Yep.
Let's pay attention, guys.
Absolutely. And if you have questions about what the federal debt means to you, or maybe lessons from the nation's debt that we can use for tackling our own debt or avoiding it altogether, 609-488-4646 is the number, 609-488-4646. And Scott, not only is the federal debt an old issue, but the back and forth between political parties, between the House and Senate, practically an annual drama at this point. Here to prove the point, former President Bill Clinton speaking about the debt ceiling in 1996.
I think it is terribly important that the Congress pass a clean debt ceiling and do it immediately so that we can honor the full faith and credit of the United States and so that those Social Security checks can go out at the 1st of March.
Yeah, and that was Clinton back in 1996. Now here is House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from this year.
They have difference of opinion on both sides, but if the Senate has a different opinion, pass a bill. How Congress works, if you just go back to Schoolhouse Rock, House pass a bill, Senate pass a bill, they can go to conference, and the president can then decide. But the one thing I do know, Schoolhouse Rock, they never told you not to negotiate. They told you to work together, and that's what we're doing.
So that all sounds great. We will see, Scott, but it's been going on, man, and it's going to keep on going on. But there's things that you can put in place for yourself where you're not as concerned about maybe the tussle back and forth and what's going on with our debt, because we can see here they're going to be battling this out probably forever.
Yeah, and this, if you're out there listening right now, when your advisor looks at your tax return on an annual basis, doesn't mean he or she has to do taxes. If they say to you, hey, we'll look at it later, let's, talk to your tax advisor, I don't look at that. They're missing a point that you need to understand. The marginal tax bracket, how you take out your required minimum distribution, when you pull money out of your accounts, if they're not looking at the tax return, this could be a monumental point, a critical point when you think about the tax rates possibly increasing. I mean, it's been the marginal tax rate has been 37% since 2018 until now. The question is, if we go back earlier years, 1960s, it was 91% of the marginal tax bracket. Pay attention to the tax returns, guys. This is, and if your advisor's not looking at it, they're not looking at you holistically. They're looking at you simplistically.
Well, and Scott, and again, the number here is listening to Financial Insanity, Scott McLean, 609-488-4646 at a.com for the website, 609-488-4646. But, we're hearing a lot of stuff about the state of the economy. We hear about inflation, the national debt we're talking about. It seems like there's always some sort of financial storm on the horizon looming. How can you help people be prepared for whatever might be coming up that, is something that can't be avoided but can be prepared for?
It's almost like we're healthy one day and the next day we wake up and we can't even get out of bed. Almost like health issues pop up out of the blue. So do tax issues pop up out of the blue. So when you meet your advisors out there, guys and gals, when you're meeting with them, hopefully they're looking at you holistically, asking lots of questions, asking you about, well, how much money you're spending. Are you paying attention to that? And then on top of looking at that, how are you settled in case your your wheels start to fall off on the health area. We spoke about that earlier in this segment. We talk about increasing costs of medical expenses. And then we think about, on top of that, how are you really poised to invest money? Is it beating inflation? Is it not beating inflation? How can we sustain that? And of course, if there's another stock market drop, like there was in 2008, like there was in 2000 to 2003, how are you positioned? How much of your money is in a nice secure area, and how much can you really risk or not risk? And these are the questions you ask on top of taxes. It's not just a simple question. Most people think, I'll invest this money. Okay, well, there's more questions to be answered before you say, let's go ahead and invest the money in different vehicles. Really, really important, guys out there and gals out there. And when you invest your money, retirees, pay attention. Pay attention to your investments, along with all the areas of taxes, Alex.
Yep, Scott is there for you. Much like This Week in History back in 1953, Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay became the first explorers to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Edmund Hillary needed that Sherpa to get that done, as more than 300 climbers have died attempting to reach the summit over the years. And you know what? That's what Scott wants to do, is to be your Sherpa, lead you up the mountain, preparing for retirement so you can enjoy that ride down. Right, Scott?
Alex, most of the deaths were coming on the descent, not on the ascent. And what people don't pay attention to is when you're in retirement, you're on the descent. And this is where you start to pull your money out for required minimum distribution, when you start pulling your money out for your investments and you take it from the wrong investments. You invest for the G, growth, versus investing for the I, income. Income that you can depend on a monthly basis. Those are the investment tools that need to pay attention, because you definitely don't want to die running out of money as the Sherpa wants to protect you going down. This is the hardest part of financial planning. Not on the growth. All boats rise in the tide, but when the tide goes out, all boats drop. How are you protected out there when you look at your investments by way of, as Alex saying, the Sherpa? What is your Sherpa looking at on all those areas of your investing life?
And quickly, Scott, how can people get a hold of you?
I'd love you to give us a call, 609-488-4646. Ask for Bonnie if you have questions. 609-488-4646.com is our website. But if you give our studios a call, maybe you can get in there. I'll take a quick couple of phone calls. And if we need to get together, we can discuss it there over the phone. But I can tell you, you have questions, we have answers, or we'll find the answers if we don't have them. How's that?
That is pretty good, Scott. Appreciate that. 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Coming up,
Alex,
more on the impact of inflation. Also, top signs you need a new advisor. That's all coming up on the 50th edition of Financial Insanity.
Oh, yeah.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609-488-4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
Frankly, you could have your grandkids tweet out to your friends or go on the Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is and say, I got great information from Scott.
And you left out TikTok there as you're rambling off the different social media being used by the kids today. You got to remember that TikTok.
Oh, that's right. Tickety-tock.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
No surprise, inflation emerging as a top concern for people preparing for retirement. CNBC saying 71% of retirement age investors worried inflation could have a negative impact on their savings. It's a fair and real concern. What do you think about it, Scott?
Reagan, 1980. Inflation is as violent as a mugger and frightening as an armed robber and as deadly as a hitman. I'll never forget that statement. Frankly, when I put it in my book, it's trap number 3 on the 3 blind mice. You know, in inflation, we've just came out of a period of time when you're coming out of a period of time with low inflation. Money is flowing like the streams in the Hudson River. And it's almost amazing that now people, when you think about inflation, at first they don't feel it. It comes on very silently. And then, like a time bomb, it blows up. And we've seen that time and time again. I remember buying gas at the gas station. Many of you listening right now, I'm your age, probably you're like maybe a little bit older. The odd even days. Remember that? I remember having, because my bad habit was water skiing, having to take the license plate off of a friend's car, stick it on their car just to go water skiing. I know that's probably wrong. I just had to make it happen. But inflation's like a thief in the night, and it shows up. And when it shows up, it could be totally, totally disastrous. I can't imagine people today on a fixed income, whether they're in retirement, and now they have to go buy some eggs. Instead of buying a dozen eggs, maybe they buy a half a dozen, or maybe they have to split meals. I feel it. I see it. I just feel for people. And man, if their investments are on the wrong spot, this could be a nightmare, especially if the stock market is dropping and then inflation's going up. You're getting a double whammy. I call it the Muhammad Ali left-right hook. And I think that's important. So, Alex, I'm not sure if you've ever studied Economics 101. I mean, heck, that class will put you to sleep faster than the strongest sleeping pills. But I think inflation really, however, causes the biggest distortion. And why is it? The printing of money. They kept printing, and everybody loves those checks, don't we? That free money. Well, free is now coming at a cost. Inflation. It's a deadly silent killer, the thief in the night.
You know, pandemic has had an effect on how people are preparing for retirement, how they think about it. And we had a poll here we looked at, personal capital poll conducted by Qualtrics, and it said 1/3 of the respondents there say the pandemic's convinced them that they'll need a larger nest egg for retirement. 36% saying the pandemic has lowered their anticipated standard of living. Are you seeing similar trends with people you're working with?
I am, especially for clients that we have. Luckily, we've been speaking about it. Doesn't mean we have the know-all, end-all answer. The question is we have to take maneuvers in the portfolio, perhaps shifting from the G, the growth investments, to the I, the income, living off the dividends and interest. Obviously, as the nest egg starts to dwindle, people are getting really, really nervous. And I did a workshop, Alex, just the last week. I think it was on a Thursday night, and I said, let's just flip the roles right now. You are the financial advisor. I'm your client. The stock market ate $100,000 of my money. In other words, the market went down. I lost $100,000. Do you want to call me? This is where I think in the financial industry, a lot of people are not calling their people. Maybe they're tucking their tail and hiding. And this is a time not to be really relaxed and tuck your head in the sand, because nothing else is exposed but your vitals. You got to be on the alert. And just today, meeting with the lovely client and his wife, beautiful people, and their advisor never called them in the past couple of years, maybe once a year. I'm not really educating. They said, we don't even know what we have. I think this is important. Now, when you throw inflation in the picture, mathematically, this could be totally disastrous. So again, really, really paying attention to what they have. And I think what's important, Alex, is this is not the time to set back when inflation is rampant. Heck, it's easier to print money than ever, which the government's doing, which they were. rather than issuing bonds, paying off debt. They just print money. I think what's happening, you're going to start seeing credit card debt escalate. You're going to see more violence, which unfortunately I don't want to talk about, but it could be getting worse. People just want to cover their family. Inflation is a very, very, very disastrous, as I say in the beginning, a thief in the night, and people should be concerned about it, pay attention to it, and watch their money. Don't just go out and blow it.
If you have concerns, you have questions about inflation, anything else, you can call Scott. That number, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Now, people, if they're worried, they think they might need a bigger nest egg, whether it's the pandemic, inflation, whatever it is, it's got them thinking about it. What's the first step to really analyze and look at and see how am I doing?
Two areas. When you're looking at your portfolio, if you're out there right now, and give you some homework to look at, because regardless of what, inflation really causes distortions in your financial plan. And when you think about it, look at two areas. Number one, look at the bottom right-hand side of your portfolio. What's it at? Just today, I was looking at a portfolio of a client, and my goodness, he came in, and him and this lovely lady, and the account's down almost 50,000. I said, when the advisor called you, what did they say? Well, they haven't called me yet. I said, well, it's been now several months. Have they called you in the past half a year? No, they haven't. So number one, pay attention to what the number is on a quarterly basis. Don't be over panicking, but if they're not calling you, get somebody there. Number two, look at the amount of units you have. So if you've got dividends to reinvest, you're building up more shares of stock. This could be a great thing. Maybe for people who want more income, maybe they turn on the dividends and don't touch the principal. In other words, don't touch the basis, the shares of stock. Just turn on the dividends to maybe help the inflation not be as challenging. For example, if I'm getting, let's say, a 5% dividend from a lovely preferred, or maybe REIT, BDC, MLP, some type of investment, and I'm getting that dividend, rather than reinvest it, maybe take it out now. Maybe some of you out, so you need a little extra money, you're afraid to burn down your account because you've seen your account values drop in a stock market that's dropping perhaps. Well, just turn on the dividends. And if you don't have a dividend portfolio, Alex, the two things to look for, as you just asked me, number one, look at the account values. And number two, are we getting more shares of stock? If you are, maybe turn off the dividend to reinvest and take out the dividends. But this is really, really another way to help kind of fight for inflation or fight it off. So you definitely need a second or third opinion. I can tell you that's critical, whether it's financial or health or anything. I think it's really important.
To get answers to your questions, 609-488-4646. More Financial Insanity with Scott McLean coming up.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Scott McLean from McLean Advisory Group agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why McLean Advisory Group was started. Scott wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement planning. McLean Advisory Group is more than just convenient. They're knowledgeable and experienced. And for answers for your questions, you can set up a meeting with Scott and his team to talk about your retirement. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. Use the same number to reach the team online. 609-488-4646.com. Investment advisory services are offered through Bellpoint Asset Management, LLC. Firm offers insurance services but does not provide tax or legal advice.
And when you pay down debt, you don't pay down the highest interest rate. The biggest mistake is you pay the highest interest rate card when you should do the snowball effect of paying down debt.
We made it back. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
2 out of 3 men underestimate life expectancy of the average 65-year-old man. Half of women underestimate the life expectancy of the average 65-year-old woman. Might not seem like a huge deal if you can't get a trivia question right on life expectancy, but can mean a big problem when you start to factor in the dollars, Scott.
Yeah. Well, I was think about life expectancy before COVID was 78 years, 79 years old, and current expectancy, I think it was 2021, was 72, almost 73. And so if you go back a time, this Adam and Eve deal, I think the curse was women are going to outlive men usually. I don't know if that's part of the Bible or not, but I do know is life expectancy. We're living a little bit longer than we used to. And when you live a little bit longer, you want to make sure you don't run out of money before you run out of life. And that's a big, big concern.
Scott, what's really the impact here? We underestimate our lifespan. Why can that be such a big deal?
In my family versus other families, I like to find out how, which isn't a real science, but in my family, the grandma died at 84 and 86. My mom and dad passed away at 74 and 75. But of course, in those generations, they smoke a lot and they drank a lot. So I tried to stay away from that. I love life. Of course, we don't know how long we're going to live. When you tier that up with your investments, they call it the rule of 4. How long will your money last? You figure $100,000 at 4%, $4,000 a year. You look at numbers and pension options. I like to tie that in to life expectancy. Example, a husband and wife, they both get Social Security. But what if one passes away? Well, they get the higher of the two, but there's a big piece that just got lost in their budget. Life expectancy. Does that mean you got to move in with your kids? Or maybe your kids move in with you? Life expectancy. So this needs to be put in the calculations of financial planning, especially when you're choosing your pension options. I don't know if that's where you want me to go, Alex, but I'm just thinking about life expectancy. We're living a lot longer than we used to. They got all sorts of medicines out there, new stuff to keep us around. They give us the $6 million man. Many of you are $6 million men, $6 million women with the new knees, new shoulders, new hearts, new parts. I guess that world came alive. But the longer we live, the more we're going to burn down our cash, which is why in the financial world, Alex, thinking about life expectancy, living on the I versus the G. The I, income producing assets that will give you a nice something you can bank on the first of the month. There's a check shows up in your mailbox, or perhaps now automatically in your checking account. But the G, the growth equals shrinkage. Can we depend on that? And so I think life expectancy has a lot to do about your financial planning in light of my family. They died young, but what if I live to 100? Did I plan that? And so I think that's really, really critical. Matter of fact, I remember taking a test on the on FINRA and of course the SEC when you get your testing, and they say, what's the life expectancy? How should you plan? Now they're saying about 100, 105. So even though none of my family lived that long, that could be really, really an amazing number. Life expectancy. What happens if your spouse passes? What does your numbers look like? Did they keep the pension, not the pension? We're living a lot longer these days, and one mistake could really affect your lifestyle.
Scott McLean Tax Advisory, 609-488-4646. If you have questions, Scott can try to answer those. And we talked a lot about inflation last segment. Retirement could last 20, 30 years. What's going to happen with inflation over that time?
Look at Venezuela. Venezuela got destroyed. If you go about inflation, it not only reduces the nest egg very rapidly, it also eats away at your current savings very rapidly. And I think what people don't understand, they do understand that, I think people now, but the younger generation, and I say my age is 60 plus, but you take a kid today that's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they don't understand that. They will later on in life. Great teaching tool. We spoke about one of our segments we spoke about in our radio shows is it's a great teaching tool for the kids right now, even though maybe you're fighting through it. And you think about the value of $1. Look at the price of these daggum cars. these used cars are more money. If you have a leased car, you know this, Alex, if you have a leased car with inflation, you're turning the car back in. They're like, they want your car. They're going to beg for you to take it back. Inflation has a way of really hitting it. And then, of course, our last thing we just spoke about, if we're living a lot longer, it could be really disastrous. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Alex, but I think people know that for life. And that's why people need to really pay attention, as we spoke about, to the bottom line of their investments and how can they preserve them, living on the income versus the growth. And that's why I think when they call us all the time, ask questions, or they come in, our clients, we need to pay attention to that more and more often. And it's not like putting your finger in the dike because another one's going to pop out, another hole is going to pop out. This is not a set it and forget it, pocket peel type of deal. This is important when we talk about this area.
And Scott, look at how much your parents paid for their first house versus how much it would be for you to get a new truck today.
Yeah.
I mean,
we talk about unexpected things that happened a little earlier. When you asked me some questions, I'm thinking about the truck. Denise and Maggie are coming back, my wife and daughter, from Ocala, from competing in the World Equestrian Center. And they're coming back April to, I think it was 2022. They're coming back. And I think you saw some pictures where the wheel of a car from the other side of the 295 Beltway in Virginia flew off the car. They're going one way. My daughter and wife are heading north. Thank goodness my daughter was driving, slouching down in the truck, and the wheel hit the windshield and ripped off the entire roof of my 3500 Ram. Now, if you see pictures, that's unexpected. What if God took them home? Well, I know they're going to heaven. I have no doubt about that. 1 John 5:13 is real clear on that. I'm okay with that. The concern to me was the unexpected challenges. You know, that new truck, they gave me all my money back. I paid for the truck. But these new trucks, I'm going to wait. They're so expensive.
Yeah.
Frankly, the price of a truck today is the price of my first house in Ocean Gate, New Jersey, where I paid $42,500. It was a duplex. And I was just praying the tenant above us would pay their bill to help me pay my 13.5% mortgage, interest rate mortgage. So that consumer price index, keep your eye on that deal because that's a good measure of inflation.
Scott, how can we create an inflation-adjusted spending plan for our retirement?
That's a great question.
Isn't it?
If you're looking at that now, I think number one is the biggest cuss word I have ever heard when it comes to finance is the B word, the budget.
Yep.
Really, nobody, if you're making fat money, you're doing real well, you're rolling and doing, and you're just doing wonder, and then all of a sudden you retire and now you're on a fixed budget. My goodness, I want the people I work with, I'd love them to do a budget 6 months before they retire and practice on that. Because if you're living, let's say, on $70,000 a year, and now you're on a fixed budget living on $40,000 a year, it's a lot of money, let alone having to turn the engine off from working, getting up at 5 a.m. and getting home at 5 p.m. If some of you guys that work like I do, well, that engine gets turned off. A lot of things are challenging in life. So the first thing, Alex, is the budget. The second thing is, how are you pulling money out of your investments to make the difference? Which is, do you take Social Security now? I get a lot of questions out of almost 570 different ways to take Social Security. Way number one versus the second way could be over $100,000 over a lifetime by choosing the wrong option. So paying attention to Social Security. And then on top of that, how do you look at this? Well, your pension options. Are you doing the pension optimization? People call us at our studios if they want. If you're having a pension, you're about to choose a pension. If you want to give a shout at our radio station about your pension options, 609-488-4646, because those pension options could really throw you off. And when you tier the pension options, when you're fighting inflation with Social Security, again, another challenge. So if you have that, I'd love to try to help anybody listening right now, 609-488-4646. We can guide you through that quagmire of just so many decisions. And then when you tear it up with your own personal IRAs or your 401ks, 403bs, along with your savings, again, it goes back to the cuss word. What was that cuss word?
Budget. Yep.
The budget. So
nobody wants to hear
so
that.
I think, Alex, I don't mean to be so simplistic. It goes back to keeping things simple. But at this time, pay attention to the bottom line. Pay attention to the units of shares of investments you have. Pay attention to the cost of living, which you're doing that. And it's going up so rapidly as it did in other countries. And people never thought it would. This is why it's so practical and very important to talk about it, at least on a yearly basis with your advisor. If you've got an advisor out there, hopefully he or she's bringing this up to you and not waiting for you to bring it up to them, but bring it up anywhere. They need to ask those questions. That's important.
Well, Scott, and you don't want to have those three blind mice. You're somebody. Well, not to be funny necessarily. I do realize dropping that in there, but that
Right.
heck, you're somebody who knows these different areas, and you can speak to these different concerns. And so it's not just inflation. There's other things that people got to be concerned about or considering as they're looking into retirement. And I think that you have a good idea of what those different things are and how you can kind of guide someone through those different steps.
Yeah, I actually put in our if you've got our book, if you'd like to make sure you get a hold of it, I'd love to help you with that. I talk about inflation on chapter number 3. We spoke about that a while back, and that's page. If you got the book with you might want to pull it out. If you've been here, I know a lot of people have been here. We were the number 7 top Amazon hit in when COVID came out. I couldn't do my tour, but then we spoke about in trap number 5, which is really, really important. Is of course I call the 3 blind mice misses by miles. These are mistakes when people plan for their retirement and they really don't look over maybe history, how history can repeat itself more often than not. Could this, the time we're in right now, be the 3rd drop? Usually in the market, over 200 years of market history, there's 3 or more drops in a cycle. The 3rd's the worst. We haven't had the 3rd, and I surely don't want the 3rd. But when we look at the cycles of time, I put on page 97. If you got the book, definitely get a hold. By the way, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but if they want that, we can email them a copy of these chapters, Alex, if they want. No cost, no obligation. I'll be happy to do that. Actually, I just said Bonnie would be happy to do that. I'll just tell her what to do. But I think these are great historical lessons you can learn on inflation, the mice traps, and the hidden costs that can really rob you blind. I call it mousetrap number 6, the hidden costs that could rob you blind. I think that's really important. So if anybody would like to get a hold of that, I'd definitely make it available. 609-488-4646. No cost, no obligation. I'm not trying to sell anything. I want you to, as I said in every one of our workshops, I want you to be informed. And then being informed is one thing, but when you're informed, you need to do one more thing. That's called take action. But if you don't take action, it's almost like a deer in the headlights, and then you're going to end up in a wreck.
Final segment with Scott McLean coming up. That number again, 609-488-4646. If you have questions for Scott, you can also visit his website, 609-488-4646.com. And when we come back, the top 5 signs you need a new advisor. This is Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. 4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609-488-4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
News, tips, and financial tricks, all right here.
It's the kind of dazzle we need around here.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group.
Well, if you've been with an advisor for a while and you're thinking about making a change, there are 5 signs it is finally time to fire your financial advisor, or maybe you're just considering getting a second opinion. We're going to hear about that now. Scott McLean here on Financial Insanity. Thank you so much for joining us. And Scott.
Thanks, Alex.
Yes, this is one of those times where, maybe somebody's out there thinking, gosh, I don't know if this person is right for me, or maybe they're thinking, I've been hearing about the value of getting a second opinion, and maybe one of these notes here or one of these signs will resonate with you. So let's jump into it here, Scott. So the first sign that it could be time to fire your current advisor, they are not acting in your best interest. I know that is so important, Scott.
It's really important, Alex. When I hire a limousine driver to bring me to the airport or bring me somewhere, my best interest is to get there on time, safely, securely, with a nice, smooth, comfortable ride. The challenge is in this volatile market, are they paying attention to it? Or maybe they're acting on their benefit. Let's get the highest rate of return, but that's speeding up and slowing down and speeding up on that limousine. Well, if they're not acting in the best interest, they're not a fiduciary. They're selling products that may have had their pocketbook. Are they ethically bound by, as we are, as a fiduciary? Are they obligated to really ask lots of deep, concerning questions? I think that's number one. Are they acting in your best interest out there listening to me? Are they just, don't worry, hang in there, like they said when I was in the early 80s, hang in there, don't worry, it'll come back. In the year 2000, hang in there, don't worry, it'll come back. That's what they told us to say. But here it is, 2022. Those statements doesn't work when you're in retirement or nearing retirement. So number one is, Alex, are they really looking at your best interest? Are they asking about your spouse and their health? Asking lots of really come to Jesus, I call it, questions. Are they really getting down in the dirt? Maybe you have a child that's disabled. Are they thinking about that child? How are they going to protect it? Maybe their lights are twinkling. They're getting dementia. Are they listening to your best interest, not just growing the money? That's really important. They're looking maybe at commissions versus really advising. That's really important.
Well, and like a driver that maybe's getting gas after picking you up as opposed to doing before. They're not acting in your best interests. Like you want an advisor to be thinking about me instead of thinking about yourself.
Absolutely.
Now, number 2 here, as we're going through 5 signs that it could be time to fire your advisor, they dismiss your input. Scott, you wouldn't want that.
I don't know anybody, and it's time really to leave, dismissing the input. I think if I was at Christmas time, if I wanted a new tennis racket, I remember the famous Arthur Ashe tennis racket. I played tennis a lot when I was younger, and I really wanted a tennis racket. Well, if I got a ping pong racket, I wanted a tennis racket. Different game. You had to hit the ball across the little fence or the big fence. The question is, did mom and dad dismiss me? And that really makes a challenge for how I feel about things. You didn't listen, Mom, Dad, or you didn't listen, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor. You see, with the expertise of asking about the taxes, ask about the legal questions, ask about the financial and investment questions. Maybe you were aggressive a few years ago when the market was taking off, but now it's going down and they don't listen to you because they say, well, it's going to come back. Hang in there. Don't worry. They absolutely didn't listen, and maybe they respond, but they didn't take action. And this is a real problem in the industry today because hopefully the market's come back. It's had a real challenge. I would like, if anybody's out there listening, you'd like a little discussion. Let's have a little talk. I'd love to talk to you off the air, and if you'd like to ask some questions of me, I'll be happy to get a hold of you. You can actually leave it with Bonnie, and Bonnie will set up a time to have you talk to us off the air at 609-488-4646. Because when you hire a financial advisor, not only number one, they were saying not acting in your best interest, and number two, are they listening or are they dismissing your input? In other words, maybe you had a child that has to move back in with you because they made a series of bad decisions and they're going through a financial challenge. Okay, that needs to be in the plan. That's why I think these financial plans are good for a short period of time, maybe a month or two, not for a long period of time because life happens. So number one, not acting in your best interest. Number two, they dismiss your input. Please, this is important to discuss this, if not on a yearly basis, at least once or twice, maybe 4 times a year if your life is really changing. Don't let your input get dismissed. Alex, now you had number 3,
Yeah.
which is really challenging. Alex, what have you heard out? What was number 3, the biggest challenge you've heard?
Sure. And what I'll say, too, is, and this kind of goes 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand. And to your point about a person like Bonnie, Bonnie's just such a great asset for you, a tremendous person to work with, to talk to, and just a great person to have in your office, and somebody who will never be number 3, difficult to reach. Because sure, Scott, you might be in and out of meetings with other fine folks, and Bonnie is the person in your office to be there to help take those calls and guide clients to you and through the process. But number 3, as far as 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor, they're difficult to reach.
You know, Alex, that's a wonderful choice. I was going to bring that up. I had different words, but your words are much better than mine. Difficult to reach. You know, we've actually just hired 2 more people because our practice is growing, which I'm so pleased that's growing. We get so many of our clients referring us, and not being able to. The number 1 goal is to take care of our clients. Number 2 goal is get new business, and of course we got to get new business to keep our business going. But luckily, we don't work out of the back of our car. We don't travel to someone's house. We don't. We have to have them come here. I used to do that in the early years of my practice from 1982, 83, 84. And actually stopped doing that in around 1995, 96, where people started coming in. I just could not make my time worthwhile. So if they're working on the back of the car, God bless them. But if they don't have a staff and someone to follow up with the questions, we're trying to train our new staff members to answer a lot of questions because we don't want people hanging out there. Just today, we had the beautiful husband pass away, and we're now discussing with them, okay, with his wife, okay, how do we plan your income? You've just lost your husband's Social Security since yours was higher. He had a pension. His pension dropped down from $1,000 a month to $450 a month. So we have to make that up. We're trying to figure that out. You know what? They need to reach somebody. And that's important. That's why we have to have a staff. So I think that's really important because, you know, again, being in that limousine, you want to be able to communicate with people which way to go, how to get there. They think they know where to go, but maybe you have a different area. So if you can't reach them, they dismiss your impact. They are not acting in your best interest. Well, are they difficult to reach? And this is really, really a challenge I hear. It's almost like you buy a product at the bank, thinking the bank's going to protect you. You set it and forget it. And that is not the area because life as a fiduciary, as an advisor, it has a lot of different segments, which is legal, tax, and finance.
Well, and if you want to reach Scott, you can at 609-488-4646. Again, the number 609-488-4646. Going through 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor. Number 1, they're not acting in your best interest. Number 2, they dismiss your input. Number 3, they're difficult to reach. Number 4, Scott, they don't give you the details. Now, I don't want all the details, but heck, if I'm giving you some of my money or a lot of my money, I would like to kind of know what's going on and what you're doing with it and not have it be a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
You know, whether they're investing $5,000 or $500,000, $1 million, each person is not, Alex, a cookie cutter. Now, when I say cookie cutter, Alex, what that means for those of you listening, let's say you have mutual funds and you bought what's called target date mutual funds. They call it the 2020, 2025, 2030. In other words, when are you going to retire? And say, well, I'm going to retire in 2035. Okay, you click it, set it, forget it. No. Not good. You need to really pay attention to those areas because they got to dig down for more details as to how much do you want to pull out. If it's for income, do we want money for our special needs child? What happens if you become disabled? These are in-depth questions that could lead down the estate planning role, which we do at our firm. I think you know that, Alex. We do that really. We got great people. Maybe they have other types of investment tools they didn't tell us about or didn't tell the advisor about. They need to pull that in, which we did just the other day, where they had an extra $30,000, which didn't change their life, but they said, oh, Scott, by the way, we have an extra $30,000. Great, let's put that over here. You take care of it. Go put it in a 3% account at Ally Bank if you wish to use them. Great liquid. But again, people's details are so important. Most of the times what I find, Alex, is if I don't ask the questions, they may not even remember to ask. Or if I don't ask diving deep questions, by the way, who does your money go to? Oh, you want to make sure it's protected because your daughter has a spendthrift problem? Well, maybe we need a spendthrift trust because if she gets it all at once, she's going to blow it. Or maybe your son is married to a person, a woman, a man that they don't like, and you want to protect that money from that person. Maybe we need to have that discussion. Again, this is a time for the advisor that I hope, if before you advise them, are they asking you really deep down, I call it intimate questions, intimate meaning intimately about your finances, to make sure you preserve your money. The money goes to the right place. And today's could be different than 2 years from now. So again, a tight lip will sink a ship. Well, could it sink a ship if you know there's a hole in it? Well, let's go tell the captain we got a problem. So again, I'm not sure what you guys are doing out there listening. That's right. You right now that are listening to me, you got to give all the information out there. They're not asking. That's why I wrote the book, The Three Blind Mice, how the financial planning process leads your money to a mousetrap. I bring up 11 different flags that pop up. And for those of you listening right now, if you'd like to get a copy of my book, I'd love to get it in your hands any way possible. Just give Bonnie a call, because these are some questions that Alex brought up, the 5 different areas. Number 1, not acting in your best interest. Fire him or your advisor. Number 2, they dismiss your input. They're not listening, trying to have their own agenda, not your agenda. And by the way, your agenda may change, as we just spoke. Number 3 was they're difficult to reach. And lastly, number 4 is they don't give you clear or all the details. But there's one more.
One more, Scott.
There's one more that's really, really, really important that ties it all together. Alex, what was that number 5? I think that you found when you speaking to your mom and dad and other advisors, families.
Absolutely. We got just a couple minutes left. We want to go over the last one, and this one's important. And for you, it's something that's easy. You're a people person. You're a social guy. You're easy to get along with, and you want to get to know people. And this is the last one. So 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor. The last one. They don't take the time to get to know you. Why is that important, Scott?
Guys, listen, if you're listening to me right now, if you invest any money with an advisor, the first time you meet them, you need to run. If they beg you for money, you need to run. You need to get to know them, know their personality, their role. It just may not be a good fit. And if you're married, have a special partner, you know what? You guys need to talk about it on your own. I would do no business with anybody. I tell it to clients when they come visit me, Alex. We will not do business today. I want to get to know you. I want to know if I can help you. I want to know if we're a good fit for our firm and a good fit for you. Because if something happens to you, I need to know how our firm can best serve you. So they don't take time to get to know you. You need to get your questions written. Not just, are you a fiduciary? That's important. Please. 609-488-4646. This was, again, the top subjects, the top area that people want to make a shift in their advisors. It's time to look at them. Number 1, they're not acting in your best interest. Number 2, they dismiss your input. Number 3, they're difficult to reach. Very important. Number 4, they don't give you the details. They need to give you all the details. And lastly, really don't take time to get to know you. And that's why I love to meet people. So I look forward to hearing from you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to those of you. And as you plan the New Year's resolution, this could be a wonderful time to get another opinion.
This presentation may contain information which has undergone regulatory or other significant change since its original recording. The The information on this program is educational in nature and is not intended to be a recommendation for any specific investment product, strategy, plan, tax, or legal advice. Information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice and is limited to the dissemination of general information and may not be suitable for members of the listening audience. Communications such as this are not impartial and are provided in connection with advertising and marketing for McLean Advisory Group. Prior to making any investment or financial decisions, an investor should always seek advice from a financial, insurance, legal, or tax professional. McLean Advisory Group and/or Scott McLean offer investment advisory and financial planning services through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.